Michelle's intern for the summer and Shane's daughter all the time. I wanted to just say thank you to Michelle for giving me this opportunity, and as a side note, she's been voted the most cool internship by the people of my class back at school twice now, so if you need an internship, she can probably hook you up with something cool. Okay. Alright, so this is my group of students that went to Rwanda with me. There I am looking really bad because we had just gone on a safari, so my hair was everywhere. But there were 2 professors and then 16 students. Sneak peek. Okay, so I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably haven't heard about Rwanda. I could be wrong. Has anyone ever been to Rwanda? No? No? Really? One. Oh, I can't make up stories. So Rwanda is actually in the middle of Africa, further south than a lot of countries. It's near the Congo, Uganda, Kenya. It was pretty hot, if you're wondering. It was lovely. And then here's a map of Rwanda, but it's kind of blurry. I had to move my pictures, different formats. But anyway, here's the capital, Kigali. It's in the center of Rwanda, and then Rwanda is divided into 5 provinces, and this happened recently, actually, post-genocide. So some of you are probably wondering why I went to Rwanda, why I traveled to the middle of Africa. There are lots of opportunities at my school. A lot of people choose a trip called Eating Your Way Through Italy, and it's literally what it sounds like. You go to Italy and eat at like every restaurant pretty much. And then the other trip that a lot of people go on is to Disney World to study math. So I picked going to Rwanda because I enjoy hearing the stories of other people and learning about tragedy and what we can do as a more fortunate country to help prevent these tragedies from happening. So this is a picture of Kigali, and you can see it over the rail. I took this from a bus. You can see that it's decently developed. There are paved roads everywhere inside of the town, sidewalks, and then there are lots and lots of homes. Rwanda is actually one of the most developed countries in Africa. It has great infrastructure, and the economy is growing incredibly in this century. So transportation, so it's kind of limited, to be honest, but they do have a bus system, taxis, dirt bikes, which we weren't allowed to ride on, and we saw a lot of accidents, so it made sense. And then walking. So the buses were our main means of transportation. And I lived about 10 miles from where I was taking classes in Rwanda, and it took me 2 hours by bus to get there because I had to go downtown and then switch buses, and then honestly I got lost so many times that it would just add another hour to my trip. So I saw a lot of Kigali on accident. So I had a homestay, and I call it a homestay because it was not very homey, I guess is what I mean to say, similar to our homes and what we would call homey. So this is Agnes, and Agnes is the coolest woman ever. She, we're supposed to call the woman we live with our host mom, but she said she was too young to be my host mom, so she was my host sister. She was really cool. She got out of the taxi to pick me up, and when she got out, she got her hair stuck in a tree. And I looked back, and she had a wig on, and it was left in the tree. She was great. And then in her home, she had a servant, and this is the servant's boy. And surprisingly, she didn't know the boy's name, so I don't know if that's part of her culture. But anyways, he loved taking selfies, so we took lots and lots of pictures together. So these are some pictures of her home. Agnes was probably part of the lower class in Rwanda. She wasn't completely poor. There were a lot of people who didn't even have homes, but she did not have a lot of money. And you can tell because outside of her home, she had this garden, And this is where she grew everything we ate. So again, corn, beans. I honestly don't know what else is in there. I don't know anything about plants. But you can see the homes are all surrounded by these walls. So you would have to go through a fence to get inside of the house. And this was more of to keep people out than to keep people in. So she would tell me to lock the gate when I got home each night. But I never felt unsafe. You can also see in the background of this picture, this home, that is the home of the servant. And so the servant would live inside of the wall with the woman. And the servant actually has a cool story. So her son was on the edge of dying. He needed a surgery, and the mother couldn't afford to pay for it. And so she came to Agnes, my host sister, and asked for money to help pay for the surgery. And instead, Agnes hired the woman to work for her, paid for the boy's surgery, and they all lived together inside of this home. So it was a really cool story, and the boy loved Agnes. I think he called Agnes mom multiple times while I was there. It was really neat. And then also you can see the laundry line, and this is where they would hang all of the clothes. I didn't have the great opportunity to learn how they wash clothes, but I'm sure you can imagine it's not in a washer or dryer. There was very little electricity inside of this home. There was a light in the bathroom and in the den, and in my bedroom, honestly, was very dark, and there was no light bulb in the fixture above my bed. So you might ask what I ate, and I would like to tell you it was normal food, but that would be kind of a lie. So on the normal side of things, they have this tea, and this would be a mint green tea, so similar to what I'm sure a lot of you drink at home. What they really had a lot of was milk tea, and what you would do is boil a thing of milk and then just put a tea bag inside of it, so it tasted like dessert. It was so good. You can also see in this picture, they're collard greens. I'm sure you eat that at home. And then this is a potato. Actually, it's a plantain. I'm so sorry. And then rice, and then it was carrots and beans and potatoes, and they were all cooked together in a pot. This would be a typical meal. However, on the second night there, she wanted me to try something different. And so while I was going to class, she asked if I liked fries. And I honestly thought she said fries, like a French fry. I was like, yes, I love French fries, American food. And it turns out that she said flies, like bugs. And so that night for dinner, I had flies cooked in chicken. So, yeah, I would like to tell you that they are good, but that would be a lie. Not good. Okay, so this is probably my favorite thing I got to see. So the fashion there was incredible. So much colors, and you can see this woman, and she's wearing a wraparound, and that was more of a traditional fancy dress people would wear, and she's taking us into the president's palace, so you can kind of get an idea of how nice that outfit would have been. These are women working. They were weaving baskets, but this is more of the typical wear people wear every day. So it would be like a solid colored t-shirt and then a bright colored skirt to be like a nicer looking outfit. And then this is inside of the store, and you can just see the mass amount of colors in each piece of clothing. And I actually have some examples because I love clothes, so I buy things. So two of these outfits are from Senegal, but it's very similar in Rwanda, what they have. So this would be a dress that a little girl would wear. It's very cool, you know, you get a good breeze. And then I had this made out of fabric there, and it is a typical top that they would wear, and then you would have a matching skirt with the same fabric. So you have a lot going on, not typical of what people wear here. And then this is their traditional dress, the dashiki, and this dress would be called a bubu, and so it's very nice. So a lot of the things I bought while I was there, and I did buy a lot, I have to admit, I love to shop. So you would buy them. You would buy them in a market, and it was outdoors pretty much. There was just a really big roof on top of lines and lines and lines of stores. And so this is the market half, where they would have fresh fruit, live animals that would walk by, and you would just pick what you wanted to eat, and they would pretty much, you know, take care of it right there for you to take home. It was fresh. It was really fresh. So you would always go into the market each day and pick out your food, and that's pretty much what the servant would do at our house. She would go in each morning and pick out what we were going to have for dinner that night, and so it honestly was really good. The food always tasted really fresh. And so then on the other half of the market was like the biggest Walmart you can imagine, and they would have all kinds of house things like toilet paper, appliance things, and then they also had places where they would just have fabric laying out. And this is where you could go pick out fabric, and then you would take it to a seamstress and they would make the outfit you wanted. That's where I got this shirt that I showed you. So I have to talk about genocide just a little bit so you understand while I was there, because I feel like I'm doing a disservice if I don't talk about something I studied just a little bit. I know it's 7 in the morning, so it's a little sad. So I thought a lot about this. Why could there be genocide in such a beautiful place? And so throughout the 20th century, there were 2 ethnic groups that began to stereotype the other group. So there were the Hutus and the Tutsis, and as you can see, these are the descriptions they would give each other. So a Hutu would be ugly, fat, short, and had a 43.16 millimeter nose. I don't know how they measured that, but that was what they told me. And then a Tutsi would have a thin, beautiful, tall, would be well proportioned, and had a 38.71 millimeter nose. And so you can imagine that, you look at someone and think they're ugly every day or think their nose is too fat, you would begin to hate the other group. So this hatred grew until the Rwandan genocide of 1994 against the Tutsis. And during this genocide, 800,000 Tutsis were killed in the span of 100 days, but that number keeps growing because they keep finding more bodies. So my favorite part of this trip was getting to hear the stories of the hope during these days. So not everyone participated in the killings. So not all of the Hutus went and tried to kill the Tutsis. There were people who would hide them in their homes. So my favorite story of this was a man and his wife who agreed to take in a man and hide him in the ceiling boards of their home. And they hid him there until people started to suspect that he was hiding someone. So they took him outside and dug a hole the size of a coffin, put him inside of the hole and covered it with floorboards so it looked like a walkway from their home. And the man lived in there for 100 days and nights. And they would take the boards off each morning and give him food, cover it back up, and then they would do this each day. So when he came out, the man could barely walk, and after a good amount of time, he could walk again. And he did walk right back to the home where he stayed and thanked the family. So the family is actually very well known because of the sacrifice they made for this man. So I also found this very fascinating. There are memorials everywhere because the genocide was all over the country. And the coolest part about it was that there could be a memorial and then right next door there would be a home. So people lived amongst the mistakes that they had made. They were reminded each morning when they got up of the problems and the hatred that they had let take over their lives. Genocide is also taught in schools. There's a narrative that the government makes sure people know, and that way students know what happened and know not to let it happen again. And then I also thought that the memorial sites were beautiful. They were well taken care of. They were probably the nicest places they had in the country. So that was very interesting. So the top 3 coolest things I saw on a brighter note, I saw Congo from across the water. Obviously, we're not allowed to go into Congo because of Ebola, and they told us not to swim in the water, but I did put my toe in because, if the water touched Congo, why not? It was kind of cool. But this is Lake Kivu, and it's between Rwanda and Congo. And you can't see Congo in this picture, but on a clear day, you can see the mountains on the other side of the water. And this would be a boat that people would take back and forth between the countries, and that was surprisingly okay. Yes. So in Rwanda, their prisons work a totally different way than our prisons do. The prisons there were outdoors completely, and people would come and go. They would go home for a weekend once a year, and they would live in a home. Basically, they would cook for themselves, and people expected the people who were living in these prisons to come back So there was no way to track the people. The people in your community just, they expected them to go back. So the prison system works very well. And the other thing is Rwandan funerals, and if you thought American funerals were long, you are wrong. I got picked up by my host sister, and the very first thing she did with me was take me to a funeral of her best friend. So you would think that would be really sad, but I learned all kinds of traditional dances, and we had lots and lots of tea. Other people had other drinks, so as you can see, it was a good time. But this was only step one of the funeral, so there would have actually been 2 more celebrations before the actual burial of the person who died. So if you're wondering what Rotary can do to help Rwanda, my dad told me a little bit about Rotary International. I believe they do help other countries who can be suffering from big amounts of poverty and lack of water, those kinds of things. Rwanda suffers from the same thing, so giving to something like Rotary International will definitely benefit countries who are third world countries. And then you can also love everyone, because as you can see through the genocide, not loving certain types of people can lead to extreme violence and mass killings. So, that was right. Okay, so if you have any... That was nice. Yeah. Thank you. So if anyone has any questions or comments, I would be glad to take them. Oh, yeah.
How long were you there again?
I was there for 2.5 weeks.
Wow.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
So have you ever seen the movie Rwanda?
I have. Actually, I have something interesting about that.
Yeah, and how did your experience and the story you heard compare with that?
Okay, so I'm going to be honest. Hotel Rwanda is a good first basis to watch. You get the understanding why the genocide happened, who was against. However, the people of Rwanda do not like that movie. And it's because it is so Hollywood that you don't get the idea of the actual violence and what really happened. You don't see all the countries who ignored the constant, beg and plea for help. So it's a good thing to watch, but there are other things that I think are good. There's The Ghost of Rwanda, and it's more of a documentary, and it literally shows government officials here talking, and then all the times that we should have gone to help but we didn't, that kind of thing. But the scenery in it, the beautiful countryside, and the buildings all look pretty similar. Yeah, good question.